Hello and welcome to this video tutorial with the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car for Virtual Racing School. This time we're at Summit Point Raceway, a challenging narrow circuit featuring a mixture of very high speed and very low speed corners. I will of course be looking at a lap driven by Rens Broekman in default morning weather conditions, for which I'll play the lap through first in full before then going into further analysis. Okay, so that was a 1 minute 08.914. So from the list of data packs on the VRS app, we're going to choose the Porsche as driven by Rens Broekman, and we'll choose week 5, which loads up the session details where you can download the replay and the setup, and we'll click on Learn Track. This loads the video analyzer, starts playing the lap through. I'll pause it, and the lap is divided up into individual sectors where we have some basic telemetry overlays such as brake, throttle, steering and speed. So we'll start us off with sector 1, which is the run from the start finish line to the braking zone of turn 1, and we're going to mute it and play this through. Just keep the car in a nice straight line, gradually moving over to the left hand side and spotting your braking zone, which is going to be the first set of cones. So we'll take it through to sector 2 now. So you should be right at the edge of the circuit once you start braking, and braking quite hard for this one just after the first set of cones, and holding those brakes on. We'll just slow it down, braking in a straight line and bleeding off quite late and turning in quite late as well. It's a very slow corner, this hairpin. So you want to turn in quite late once the speed has come all the way down, and hold those brakes on all the way into the apex, just bleeding off to about 20% there. Rens does lock the inside wheel, which is very easy to do in this car, but still manages to hook up nicely with the apex, where you have a patch of concrete. And it's important to stay on this or to not run outside of it. So as you pick up the throttle at the apex or just after, be aware of that and try and keep on that concrete, and not to allow the car to run outside of that. And you should be reaching full throttle before that concrete finishes as well. Don't allow the car to go wider than the middle of the circuit. Bring the car gradually over to the right hand edge of the circuit as you approach turn 3. So braking for this one is going to be quite significantly before this access road on the right hand side here. We'll take it through to sector 3, and it's a very high speed corner, so you're not going to brake very hard because you want to carry a nice amount of speed into the turn-in point. So we're turning in already with a lot of speed, and we've still got the brakes on quite heavily at this point. Still about 25%, just carrying that into the apex. And you want to just run the inside of this inside curb, but it's a very tall curb, so you don't want to get up on top of it, otherwise it will upset the balance of the car. And notice how Rens picks up the throttle just before he apexes. And it's also quite a late apex for him as well. So hard on the throttle, You're in fourth gear, there's plenty of traction for the torque at the wheels in fourth gear, so you can get to full power quite quickly, assuming that you've got your line just right, and then using all of the track on the exit. The exit curb is more forgiving, so you can use a bit more of that. And then the short run towards turn 4, you'll notice how Rens runs the car just on the inside of this extra tarmac here on the left hand side, before thinking about braking just after that extra tarmac ends. So we go through to sector 4. Another high speed corner is turn 4. So braking quite gently for this one again, and bleeding off quite early because you want to turn in quite soon. Quite an early turn in there, and try and hook up with the camber of the road, especially at the apex, which should pull you around, getting close to that inside curb, and gradually bleeding off. The car will probably run out to just wide of the middle of the circuit, but you'll notice on the exit that Rens is aimed for the outside on his approach to turn 5, which allows him to brake quite hard and in a straight line at this point down into second gear, and turning in from just right of the middle of the circuit. We'll just go back to where he's braking hard, so he's just in the right hand side lane, but he's not all the way to the edge of the circuit before he starts to turn in. And then you want to hook up with this inside curb slightly, not fully. The important thing is to run on the inside of this concrete area once again, which we'll see in the following corner as well, and keeping a tight line on the exit that has quite a late apex, picking up the throttle much more carefully this time. You're in second gear, so there's a lot more torque at the rear wheels, and yeah, keeping the car nice and tight on the exit, which will give you a wide entry for the braking zone into turn 6. We'll just show you the positioning there. So just as Ren starts to brake hard, he's right at the edge of the circuit, and this is a very, very long corner. This right-hander, it opens up slightly before then tightening again, but again you've got this concrete patch on the apex or throughout the inside of the corner. You want to run along that and hold the brakes into the apex, avoiding this inside curb but getting very, very close to it, and picking up the throttle quite carefully. And notice Rens doesn't reach full throttle here. That's because he's trying his best to keep the car nice and tight on the exit. It's really important to be neat and tidy through this section, and you'll notice how Rens lifts out of the throttle briefly here, because he's trying to position his car as best as possible for turn 7, which is absolutely critical in terms of car positioning. So you want to get your car onto this curb just here, fully over to the right hand side, which allows him to get to full throttle for quite a long period of time before he's then turning left and lifting just as he clips the curb on the left hand side here. So up onto that curb briefly whilst lifting out of the throttle, which is going to give him a wider line into turn 9 and allow him to carry more speed through there. So really tight on the exit of 7, wide entry into 8, tight through the exit of 8, which is where we are now, and then that allows you to have a wide entry into 9, where you do just want to tease the brakes very, very briefly on the brakes there before getting hard on the throttle and almost reaching full throttle here before the apex, just before the apex, and once again getting as close as possible to this inside curb, but actually avoiding the curb itself. And you'll see here Rens, in anticipation of getting some oversteer on the exit here, actually breathes very briefly out of the throttle just as he's exiting the corner. So very brief lift out of the throttle there, opening the steering up, anticipating some oversteer, slight correction which we can see in the steering trace here for some oversteer, but keeps it flat out, for the run down towards the final corner. Now there's not much in the way of a reference for this one except for the pit lane on the right hand side. So you want to be braking several car lengths before the start of the pit lane entry, and you can afford to brake quite hard initially, but the corner is going to start quite early. It's a high speed corner, so Rens starts bleeding off just about here in fourth gear at this point, bleeding off the brakes, holding the brakes, keeping the nose loaded up, keeping the front tyres loaded up, hooking up with the apex, or picking up the throttle actually before the apex, just before the apex, but getting super close to that inside curb, and once again just avoiding it and reaching full throttle as the car tracks out towards this wider exit curb. So a bit of a modulation there before reaching full throttle, and then using all of this exit curb here right up towards the gravel for the exit, and that way you're carrying a nice wide arc through the final corner and carrying lots of speed through to the exit as you keep the steering nice and open and across the line to finish the lap. You can find qualifying and race setups, telemetry and replays over at virtualracingschool.com, where you can also book one-to-one tuition with myself and top drivers from the likes of Koanda Sim Sport. Good luck for this week, and feel free to post any questions or comments below. Thanks for watching.